Vital, our 12-month practitioner training program, is back for its third cohort starting January 2024. The last two cohorts have been nothing short of transformational both personally and professionally for everyone involved, and here's a little taste of what makes it so special. Vital is a process-oriented curriculum, focusing on multidisciplinary perspectives and wisdom traditions, guiding students through powerful inner work and building practical skills to support lifelong growth. Through lectures, study groups, elective modules, retreats, and process papers, you'll have all the support you need to develop your own vision and model for entering this exciting field. Applications for Vital are open until December the 20th, with early bird discounts available until November the 19th. We invite you to apply early to improve your chances of being accepted into this global community of the next generation of psychedelic wellness practitioners. So, head to vitalpsychedelictraining.com to download our full course curriculum and learn more about this transformative journey.
Psychedelics Today is excited to announce we are the premier partner of the Remind Psychedelics Business Forum, a 2-day conference and networking event happening November 28th and 29th at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino in partnership with MJ BizCon. The forum brings together entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, policymakers, and healthcare professionals at the forefront of this rapidly evolving industry. Psychedelics Today founder Joe Moore will be presenting alongside an incredible lineup of speakers, such as Courtney Barnes, Ariel Clark, Amanda Ryman, Josh Hardman, and many more. Registration includes breakfast, lunch, coffee break, and a networking reception. And I heard such great things about Remind last year that I'm making sure to personally be there, so I hope to see you in Vegas. Visit remindmedia.com and you can use code REM, R-E-M, Psych, P-S-Y-C today for 10% off your registration.
Are you a fan of psychedelic cinema? Well, if you've seen the film Fantastic Fungi or the series Moving Art, we've got something for you that you will not want to miss. Gratitude Revealed is the latest documentary from director Louie Schwartzberg. And thanks to Louie and his team, the film is now available for free for our entire Psychedelics Today community to enjoy. And even better, we're hosting an intimate, interactive Q&A with Louie Schwartzberg live on our Navigators platform on October 25th. So if you want to watch the film and take part in the discussion, head to the events section of our website, psychedelicstoday.com/events, and enter your email to grab the streaming link and all the info. We also hope you enjoy today's episode with Louie. If you're listening, take some mental notes, watch the new film, and come chat with Louie yourself on October 25th. And in keeping with the theme, we are so grateful for all of you, and we can't wait to see you there. Again, that's psychedelicstoday.com/events to watch the film and sign up to join the discussion.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Psychedelics Today. Today on the show, we have filmmaker Louie Schwartzberg. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you, Joe.
I'm really excited. So we're both in Colorado, but far away from each other. You're there at Telluride Mushroom Festival, which is glorious. I've always wanted to have a deep partnership with them, and I think I'll be able to pull it off in the next year or two. But I'm such a big fan of that festival. Have you been going for a bit?
Many years. It's been fantastic, and Telluride's always been a sweet spot in my heart because way before the Mushroom Festival, like late 80s, Mountain Film would always show my work. And I always had these invites to stay in a little cute bed and breakfast, enjoy the national park quality scenery that's here, and the warmest group of people.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I think I've been about 4 Telluride mushrooms, been a handful of times for other stuff. I just can't wait to get back. Not this year. They time it so it's like you have to pull off a marathon if you're going to do Telluride Mushroom and then Burning Man. It's like, how do you pick? But yeah, it's awesome. So you came on my radar. I actually didn't know your name. I walked into this theater at Telluride, and all of a sudden Fantastic Fungi was screening, and I'm like, what on earth is this film? It's a beautiful film. And that was my first encounter, I believe, knowingly with your work. Was that the premiere? Did you actually premiere it there, or was it toured elsewhere first?
Well, did you see it in the Sheraton or in the Palm Theater?
It was the Palm Theater.
Yeah. So that was before, yeah, we launched it, late in 2019, because that would have been the summer, like Labor Day typically. And then, so yeah, I've always considered this to be kind of like ground zero. It's a way to give back to the community, but also it was a wonderful way to kind of gauge the emotional impact of what the audience can do. Because what we want to do with the movie is create a space for conversations to occur. It's more than just blow them away. It's more like get people to reconnect with each other, which is what we did in other cities like Denver, and when we launched it as well, and others. We would bring in local mycologists, foragers, chefs, environmentalists, spiritual healers, psychonauts, and that coalesced a community in every city where these people had shared interests, but some of them knew each other, some of them didn't, but obviously they all overlap, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you care about the environment, you care about plants, you care about mushrooms, it's the same group of people that are more conscious. And so therefore, yeah, it was great to be able to have that be the catalyst, I think, to really, accentuate a movement.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And from what I recall, the reception was amazing at Telluride
Yeah.
too. People were over the moon. I was too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Good
For
launching
sure.
pad. This is a good, I mean, to think it goes from this little town in Telluride to 190 countries, 200 million subscribers, where it eventually landed, let's say, on Netflix. And before that, it was, on Apple TV and, Amazon. But still, that data point on Netflix alone gives you the idea that it sporulates, it's like the mushroom spores kicked out of Telluride. And guess what? In theory and practically, we were able to turn on the world. Because everywhere I go, people recognize, if they don't recognize me, they recognize my mushroom necklace. And then they ask me questions about mushrooms. And I go, yeah, I'm the guy that did Fantastic Fungi. They go, oh my God, it changed my life in Belgium, in Estonia, all over the world. It's Turkey, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, that really, it's not an ego trip. It just really gives me the belief or faith that you can have global impact, that you can, move a lot of people. What you're doing, the people that tune in to your podcast, I mean, is that 100 people? Is it 10,000 people? Is it a million people? Could it be 50 million people? In theory, hypothetically, why not?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, especially if the tone's right and everything. But that's actually a really good point, Louie, and an empowering point. People can have gigantic impact.
Right.
It's actually more possible now, perhaps, than ever before in history, I think. And what you did with your film, what we do here at Psychedelics Say, like massive impact, not a very big operation. You
Yeah,
know,
it's
yeah,
great. I think the plus side to the new digital technology enables us to be able to have alternative forms of communication, which is really great. And so, yeah, I think we just need to be really bold and create our own messaging, because look, the old-fashioned media, and believe me, I live in that world, it is based on fear, it's based on conflict, and those are things I never believed in, which is why I make the films I make. Where if it's nature-based, it's about symbiosis, it's about relationships, it's about regeneration, it's about shifting consciousness. I don't want to make people feel scared. I don't want to scare people. I don't want to create cortisol. I don't want to create stress, anxiety. There's enough of that out there, but unfortunately, like 95% of quote unquote entertainment is based on that premise, that formula, because people want to rush. They want an adrenaline rush, and that's a cheap way to get it. And it's also has clearly negative impact on your body, and obviously, I would assume on your mind. So yeah, so we're offering an alternative to all of that, which is really cool.
that's great. So I'm kind of curious, Louie, how did you start getting interested in filmmaking and then maybe mushrooms as well?
Yeah. I went to UCLA. I was a poli sci history major. I think I
Wow.
wanted to fight for social justice. My parents were Holocaust survivors, and growing up under their roof, you just two things: you learn to appreciate all the little things in life that we often take for granted, and you also want to make the world a better place. And so at UCLA, when I got there, it was at the sort of the beginning of the Vietnam War and the protests. And why would I study the French Revolution if there's a revolution happening outside my door? And so I quickly learned photography and I documented the police brutality that was happening on campus. And then I found out that handing in a photo essay was a lot easier for me than writing a paper. And so therefore I found my voice and I fell in love with photography, and that led me to fine art photography and then filmmaking. And then when you get into all of that, then nature is certainly your greatest subject and maybe greatest teacher to teach you about lighting and composition and movement and art, you know. And and obviously in college, I definitely took a couple of mushroom psychedelic trips, and after doing that, you want to share with others what you learned or what you experienced. So therefore, it really I think turned me on to doing altered frame rate cinematography like time lapse and slow mo and micro and macro because I want to show you things that are real yet invisible to the naked eye. Making the invisible visible and showing things that I think happen on psychedelic journeys. I mean, it's not like you hallucinate this stuff. I believe filters are removed and you're seeing things in a different way. And that's what I do if I speed things up or slow things down. It's the same idea of broadening your worldview, shifting consciousness, making you aware of what a hummingbird can see and what a flower can see, and realize don't be arrogant that what you see is the only foundation of reality. Just like when you travel, you go to different cultures, and that broadens your worldview in a beautiful way as well. And I think by slowing down, speeding up, zooming in, zooming out, it's just another way to shift consciousness in a really healthy way to be more open minded.
Mm. Did Were there like one or two filmmakers that were really inspirational for you? I'm I'm sure there's a million of them, right? But like it's
You
hard to
know,
isolate, I'm sure.
well, I mean, certainly Steven Spielberg, I think, is a great inspiration because the films he's done has certainly been like filled with wonder and awe, which is what I really love, and childlike innocence, and certainly he's been able to pull that off with a lot of really good budgets, which I think it's great. I think I've been more inspired, I think, by fine art photography and the great nature, some photographers that have worked in that world, because I think whatever I've learned, I've kind of learned by experimenting and pioneering on my own. I think I was the first to do 35 millimeter time lapse. Um, yeah, I mean that's how I got started. I didn't have money graduating college to like film. Like, film even back then was $100 a minute for raw stock development process. Think about that in 35 millimeter, which is what I wanted to do because of the fine art photography. I want to have a big negative. I want to make imagery like Ansel Adams and Edward Weston, which nobody does in movies, or certainly not in commercials, and certainly not in exploitation films. They don't care about the gorgeousness of nature being portrayed in its most ultimate detail. That's sort of like never the point. But that was what I wanted to do. So by filming time lapse, I would shoot a small amount of film over a long period of time, one frame every 10 seconds, one frame a minute. That turned me on to filming, fog and sunrises and sunsets, shafts of light. I moved to Northern California, lived in a little town called Elk, about 150 miles north of San Francisco. Less than 100 people lived there. Coast
Wow.
Highway was like empty.
Yes.
But I was able to shoot the fog coming in and out and experiment with all kinds of natural phenomena. And that just really turned me on to that sense of wonder, you know, to be able to see, nature's wonders in that way. And so that just became, I think, a natural evolution in a sense.
Mm, that's great. And kind of wrapping up on Fantastic Fungi, like what do you think in your experience of the launch of the film and kind of the after effects, like what do you think the influence of Fantastic Fungi was on the psychedelic, just call it a scene
Yeah.
generally?
Well, I think Fantastic Fungi had a giant impact. First of all, we are really clear, like, in the film, we don't encourage recreational use. I mean, when we talk about psychedelics, it's primarily looking at the clinical trials that were happening in Johns Hopkins, and how could your heart not be melted when you see cancer patients overcoming their fear of dying and being able to survive perhaps a much longer period of time, if not forever, after losing that anxiety, which that connection to the universe, which psychedelics offer, is certainly a beautiful portal to be medicine for people that are suffering in such a dramatic way. I mean, because it's bad enough you get this diagnosis, you have cancer, so now you got to like worry about the physiology of all of that. But then for a lot of people, if dying, this idea of dying is around the corner, and you have these stories about heaven and hell, or other kind of scary stories, or no story, then that creates a lot more stress and anxiety, which I think makes it more difficult for you to heal, because we all know about this mind body spirit connection. And so if you want to heal physiologically the cancer that's happening in your body, the best thing in the world, I believe, is to have a healthy mindset, right? And not have a fear of dying, and not add anxiety and stress and inflammation and compounding what you've already got. And if that is possibly a gift, oh my God, what wonderful that is in terms of eliminating suffering, and with so many people. And so I've had people come up to me and share those stories a lot. And I've also, on the other end, have great stories where people come up and go, God, thank you so much. Not only did it change my life, but I was able to like share it with my parents, and my brothers and my sisters, my coworkers. I mean, they never got it, or they always like were, worried, or, had negative, attitude toward me about the fact, and then, or I couldn't even talk about it. I had to hold it inside and not share. That hurts. Imagine having the most spiritual experience of your life and not being able to tell your friends or family. There you go. He's raising his hand. So that's like suppressing. That actually creates disease. You know that, Joe. For whether it's
Oh,
a
I'm very
trauma.
out now, but yeah, for sure. It
Yeah,
was
but
not
like whether
fun.
it's, I mean, that's what happens with trauma,
Hmm.
right? And we hold it in, and that's why psychedelics are good for as a healing modality to open it up, so that you can talk about it and look at it and move on. But another incredible emotional deep experience would be a spiritual experience that you might have had, and the fact that it was maybe the most important, or the top three most important experiences of your life, and you can't talk about it. Oh my God, that cannot
Hmm.
be healthy. You know?
No, no, and people have these spontaneously, right? It doesn't have to be a Zen monk, a yogi, a
Yeah.
psychedelic head. This can just happen. You're sitting in traffic, and all of a sudden you had that big experience. And what do you do? Yeah. And I think that's why it's important to have these conversations so people can understand, oh, there is a frame in which I can be accepted here and share about this safely. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the stories I get is that now their parents, after and then they watch the movie, so they can watch the movie, and now it's like they can have a conversation. And in addition, lots of times, it even happened yesterday here at the festival. This young lady introduced me to her parents, and now the parents are asking, "Where can I go get it? I mean, where can I get? Where can I go on the psychedelic journey? Like at a hospital, or therapy, or whatever." Not like where can I go score the mushroom, but they're asking where can I experience it,
Oh,
like they
wow.
saw in the John Hopkins trial. So it goes from not talking to having a conversation to now offering recommendations. And then other stories, I've had young people or younger people say with their parents that they've actually, shared some mushrooms with them and gone on a journey together. And I go, you're kidding me. Like, wow. I mean, how was that? And they all said it's been great. I mean, imagine. I mean, I'd love to be able to do that with my daughters. I think they're not ready for that, but I think it would be amazing.
Mm. I've heard amazing stories from folks who have experienced it with their parents, and I I find that amazing, like just healing the that dynamic, right? Like at a certain point, like can't you just be humans together, And
Yeah,
this can help, I
yeah,
believe.
yeah. Especially you have this relationship with these people, call them your parents or call them your kids, whatever it is, that you've lived with intimately, but
Mm.
in a way you've never gone deep together.
Mm-hmm.
Where you've never like seen each other as not my mom and my dad, but more like Joe.
Right.
Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Other than being my dad. you know,
Right.
it's different.
Like that framing, just yeah, who are you? Yeah, that's interesting. And just imagine how many estranged families there are that could have been helped this way too, and how thankful some people should be,
Yeah,
that they actually have healthy situations going.
yeah. And most
Um,
families are dysfunctional, so there you go.
hmm So, Louie, what kind of other projects are you guys on psychedelics right now? It sounds like you're premiering something tonight.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm premiering a film that I created for a clinical trial at the Pacific Neuroscience Institute, which is at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica. And the clinical trial was designed to see if watching my imagery, the rhythms and patterns of nature with music, 4K imagery on an 80-inch digital display, and you're sitting about 2 to 3 feet away from it, so it kind of fills your field of view, um, would would be helpful in treating alcohol addiction. And so they watch the film, which is about 45 minutes as they're coming on. And this, I think, is especially useful for people that have never done it before, because I think there'd be a lot of anxiety, a little bit like, oh, what am I going to feel and what's going to happen?
Do you know
If
what
you've
kind of
never
dose,
done it.
Louie?
Do I want a dose right
No,
now?
no, no. Do you, do you know what kind of dose they were on, or what kind of?
Yeah, they're getting the standard dose that is given in clinical trials in all the universities across the country, which I think is provided by good friends over at Promega and the Bill Linton. Oh, God, what's the name of the institute? It'll come to me in a second. But they have a nonprofit, and they end up
Usona?
USONA. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so USONA provides most of it to most of these therapeutic trials. So I'm not sure what the dose is. I'm sure I'm going to guess. I think I've heard it's 5 grams,
It
but it's synthetic.
roughly speaking, 5 gram equivalent is what I've been hearing.
Yes, that's what I heard too.
But it's as you probably know, it's bad math. It's never gonna work. Like
Right,
every bag of mushrooms different. So
right. Yeah.
yeah,
But in this particular case, and I know there's, I have to come back and explain the film, but we're going to digress for a second about the controversy over like organic versus synthetic, you know, and in these clinical trials, it has to be synthetic. I want everyone to understand that because it has to be controlled, has to be exactly the same amount, and pretty much exactly the same experience, for everybody. I mean, everyone's different, but at least the dose is the same, and the molecule is very much the same because it is synthetic. Okay,
hmm
so you have to have something that's in control. Can't be a variable. Okay, so the film is, I put it together of just these gorgeous rhythms and patterns of nature. We kind of go through different sort of ecosystems, and then they lay down for 2 hours with eye shades in the typical therapeutic model. And then I created like a 15-minute video to help them come to be grounded. Warm, colors, shafts of light in canyons, underwater with whale, stuff that brings you back to earth, quote unquote, and we're going to be publishing the results, I think, shortly. in, I think, Psychology Today. And I'll give you a hint that the combination of nature's imagery with psilocybin was actually better than psilocybin by itself in terms of the effects it had on the patients, especially in areas of cardiovascular responses like lowering blood pressure, things like that are measurable, which was really super exciting. It's something I've been wanting to do for decades, is to figure out like how nature's imagery can be medicine. And if it's medicine, you can't just say like, "Oh, nature's good for you." That'd be like me saying, "Oh, drugs are good for you," or "music's good for you," or "food is good for you." The follow-up question would be, "What kind of food? What kind of music?"
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right. Yeah. I can think of drugs that are bad for you, food that's bad for you, and nature that's
Exactly.
quite dangerous.
Yeah. So we say nature's
Volcanoes and mountain
so
lions.
exactly. It's just a really broad statement. And
Mm-hmm.
imagine what I'm hoping to do, and I'm going to start a new clinical trial at University of California at San Francisco at the Neuroscape Lab with
Oh,
Adam
great.
Gazzaley.
Nice.
Yeah, Adam Gazzaley, Robin Cahart Harris, and we're gonna, as we're waiting to get the FDA approval on the psilocybin, we're going to be testing ecosystems, because I want to be able to say to you, Joe, like, what you need are forests, or what you need are flowers, or what you need, if I was going to be diagnostic,
So
just
like
like I would
personality
recommend.
types or like psyche
Well, yeah, I might
types,
say,
pairing it.
Maybe you ought to listen to like Tibetan bells, or maybe you ought to listen to like East Forest. I mean, I might give you a couple of recommendations, right? So maybe I could do that. But even more importantly, it could be integrative medicine, that once you have measured someone's energy, and reaction to certain, let's say, visual ecosystems, like Ayurvedic medicine, they can just hold your pulse, and they can immediately, right, tell you fire, water, earth, air, what kind of person you are. And then you know what they
Mm-hmm.
normally do? They prescribe the opposite
Ooh,
to balance you.
balance it. Mm-hmm.
So if you're fire, they give you water, in terms of different, like, tinctures and, treatments, etc. And that's based on ancient wisdom, 5,000 years of Hindu, you know, or Indian studies, right? It's pretty remarkable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fascinating. And
So,
yeah, our medicine's what,
so
a couple hundred years old. Theirs is many
yeah.
thousands.
Well, I mean, it's just, again, it's kind of beautiful. Respect for indigenous knowledge, respect for indigenous culture, in the broad use of psychedelics, from South America to Mexico to Siberia, to the Greeks. Whoever was doing it for thousands and thousands of years, we want to be able to take advantage of that knowledge and wisdom. And if we couple it actually with the best aspects of today's breakthrough technologies, which is possible, like the conversation we're having today. I'm talking to you from Telluride, and you're in Breckenridge, you said?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And so that's a goddamn miracle. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that people all over the world will be hearing this podcast, that's a goddamn miracle, of current technology. And here we are, and we can be talking about shamanic practices at the same time, like doing mushrooms, etc. So yeah,
I love that.
it's an example of like what I'm trying to do. So if we could get these studies going, um, and be able to really, dial in, then I'm really turned on, because that's what I, with my library, and actually, Joe, what we just did, I launched something called the Louie Channel, which people can actually download, not only as a mobile app, but like on Apple TV, Roku, on smart TVs, so you can watch it in 4K and 5.1. And the reason why that's important is that when it comes to nature's medicine, it's all about the detail. It's sacred geometry, looking at the close up of the wing of a butterfly. I mean, you want to be able to see it. You want to be able to hear also the beautiful music that we may have recorded with people like East Forest and others, And so that is the sacred medicine that is being communicated. It's not about, oh, it's pretty, oh, it's beautiful, oh, Louis knows how to do good lighting. Uh-uh. It's about communicating the energy, the vibrations, whether it's music or visuals, they are wavelengths, they are vibrations of sacred patterns and rhythms that I try to communicate as purely as possible.
Mm. So I remember having a conversation. No. Let's back that up. The Psychedelic Salon podcast ages ago, I think 2006 or something around there. They were discussing tripping and watching really amazing HD footage. This is when 720, 1080 were still a little rare.
Yeah.
And do you ever like watch this? Like, what is it like? And now we're saying like really, really, really amazing 4K plus, a 5.1 mix, or like, we could even push the limits of like a Dolby Atmos mix. I don't know how crazy that is, but
Right.
like that kind of stuff just wildly amplifies the effect. And what's fun is people have been thinking about this, but you've taken the bull by the horns and done it,
Yeah.
and
Well,
now doing clinical trials, which is amazing.
exactly. And look, in the reality is like 95% that's being used on cop shows and drama and, exploitation, reality TV, whatever. I mean, like just, let's just call it like there's fast food and there's junk food. There's like junk visuals. It's not good for you, but that's what's being pumped out currently. So that's why I had to go to the effort really to create my own platform. So we have a beautiful carousel on mushrooms and fantastic fungi. We have one on gratitude. We have one on wonder and awe. Friends of Louie. Those will be other super high quality filmmakers putting their content up as well. Howard Hall. I've got his underwater films, which are extraordinary. With whales and dolphins and all kinds of magical wonders. And Louie Land will be for kids and children's hospitals. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of a major breakthrough.
It's extraordinary, Louis. I love that. And I didn't even think about bringing it to kids in hospitals. That's really amazing. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because like in a way, it's kind of, you were talking about psychedelics, on your podcast, but like the truth is, I think the imagery I want to create, for your community, this community, is exactly the same I would do for a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. You know what I mean? How beautiful is that? It's about wonder and awe. It's about being open-minded. So it's not about the quote unquote drug or the medicinal herb, I should say. I mean, because we all know we have these aha moments with and without, the use of sacred plants, and sacred plants can really help facilitate that, especially when you're stuck if you've never experienced it before. So that's beautiful. But obviously you don't need to do it every day, So, I mean, at least a hero's journey every day. That would be like too much. And that's why I want to maybe explain, like, why did I make a film about gratitude? Because I did that answer.
Yeah, what are you calling it first?
It's Gratitude Revealed.
Perfect.
Yeah, Gratitude Revealed is the film that I'm currently distributing in a similar way that I did with Fantastic Fungi, where we're creating like events. We're allowing people to come together, either virtually or physically, and have, a container for the community to have a conversation about it and bringing people together, especially coming out of COVID when everyone experienced the fact that we could not gather with friends and family and have conversation. It's something we take for granted. It's like with your health, only when it goes away do you think about it, how important that is to your life. So with Gratitude Revealed, those are the kind of events we're doing. We're hosting it on the Louie Channel as well. And hopefully, I think we're going to do something with your audience where we get to like show the film and then have a conversation with people all over the world. And so the reason why I made Gratitude Revealed, which I discovered afterwards, and your audience is going to really understand it. The practicality was during COVID, I was stuck indoors. I had all this footage, been working on it for 20 or 30 years. The time had come to make it. I had a popular TED Talk about gratitude in 2014 and went viral that kind of proved that there's a desire and an audience. Way back then, I was thinking about this. But, as you know, as an independent filmmaker and having to raise money and do other things take a slow. Sometimes it takes a long time for it to happen. But usually the universe figures out the perfect time for it to come out, which I really love. Fantastic Fungi took 15 years.
Oh my God.
And it came out at the perfect time. Because imagine it had come out 5 or even 10 years earlier, I think people wouldn't have been ready for it in the same way,
Agreed.
you know? And so now with gratitude, the same thing, I think coming out of COVID, we're learning to appreciate the things we miss, like getting together with people and et cetera. And so for those people that really understand the psychedelic journey, what I realized afterwards, and people say, why did you make it feel my gratitude? Was a fantastic fungi was really the journey underground to learn about nature's intelligence, about the mycelial network, a shared economy where information and nutrients are shared without greed for ecosystems to flourish. When you have that wisdom, when you have that aha moment, the next big step is what are you going to do about it? And we all call that integration in the psychedelic community. Without integration, it's really like kind of a waste of just having an aha moment. You're not going to do anything about it, correct? And so gratitude revealed is taking that wisdom from below the ground, above the ground, and let's have a journey into the human soul. And how are you going to take that insight, that aha moment, that revelation, whatever it was for you, and you're listening to your inner voice, listening to you, and how are you going to like integrate that into the relationships with your partner, your workers, your community, the world, how are you going to do that? And that's really what gratitude revealed is about, because I look at values like courage, focus, creativity, wonder, connection, generosity, love, death, all of it. All of those, kind of little topics are all kind of explored. And then I believe all of that adds up to gratitude. I really don't go deep into gratitude as much as I go into, I think, the values of being grateful.
That's interesting. Yeah. I was chatting, or what was I doing? I think I was reading this book called Swimming in the Sacred, kind of covering a lot of female facilitators who have been at it for at least 20 years. It was interesting. And kind of universally, they're pulling on very traditional kind of indigenous values around gratitude and protecting the planet. And I think that kind of encapsulates, to a degree, maybe intentionally, what you're doing with the nature films and also gratitude, right? You're hitting both. And that's often something we get from psychedelics, and I love that. And
yeah, I mean, psychedelics. I mean, there are some studies that show you become more environmentally conscious. You become more environmentally conscious because now you're aware that everything is alive, that you're in a living universe, that those the trees are a community, that forest isn't a bunch of trees, it's a community, and that there's spirit there. I mean, all those things make you fall in love with nature, and therefore you don't have to tell people what to do. You become an activist. You become an environmentalist, man. You fucking fight like crazy to protect that old growth forest from being cut down. And you won't throw away paper, not because you're supposed to recycle, because you just can't do it. It hurts.
Right. I think many of us just walk around with recycling or trash in our pockets just so we can put it in the right place. I know I do.
Yeah. It's like, it's so beautiful that you automatically make the right choices. And that's why I think with Gratitude Revealed, I focus on values, because if you have the right values, then you make the right choices. So rather than making a political movie, which I support others to do, especially if they're like liberal or if they're like, conscious, then I think that's great. But then again, you don't have to tell people what to do or how to vote. And this way we can also, I think, bridge that polarization thing, because you can talk to people in red states. And I have people in red states that are in my movie, cowboys, dairy farmers, Cajun guitar player, people in Appalachia, whatever, because they can also we can create a bridge by saying we both love nature. We want life to flourish. We want our kids to have a good life. We want things to be regenerative, beyond sustainable, right? And let's, yeah, let's just honor each other, and when we can agree about that. If we agree on that, then there's really nothing else we disagree about.
Have you seen this film, Purple Mountains by Jeremy Jones? Um,
No,
it was beautiful, and it kind of captures this. So he's um, a professional snowboarder, and he's seeing his whole world kind of collapsing, right? And he lives in the Sierras, and you know, climate's not so stable. And he actually goes, and he's in front of Congress all the time. He's actually going out and going on hikes and snowboarding trips, like hiking up and snowboarding down, so no lifts or anything, with people from diametrically opposed political positions. And
yeah,
they just, like you just said, agree. We love this. We love this, and we should protect this. And that really can transcend, oil politics or climate politics in a way.
right,
Like, let's just really dig down. What do we need to do?
yeah, totally. And look, and the politicians, they understand how to press that fear button. They go right to the cultural differences and press the abortion button or the gun thing or whatever it might be, and and all the lies and all that. But I don't want to even spend another second talking about that, other than we have to be conscious that pressing the fear button is easy to do because that's survival, and it can we all you get an immediate reaction. The films I'm trying to make and what we're discussing here is like making people laugh, make people cry, make people fall in love. Yeah, that takes a little more talent than pointing a gun at you. And so it's beauty and love and gratitude is the emotional energy we can employ to overcome fear.
Mm. Hmm. Right. Yeah. There's very few things as powerful that
Because it
can.
has to be emotional,
Yeah.
because it can't be logical. It can't be, I can't say, oh, don't feel scared because it's bad for you. You know, it's like, no, it's like that doesn't work. Appealing to the mind. Because the mind's going to go, oh wow, survival. I'm always going to like kick into that survival mode.
Hmm.
Is it a threat? And then so it has to be an emotion. It has to be something you feel to overcome that other feeling of fear. So it's got to be about beauty and love and connection.
Mm. That's amazing. Yeah. So we'll do our screening together in October. We don't have a date picked yet, but it'll be picked real soon. I think by this afternoon, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that, a screening
Yeah, I
with
think
Q
it's
and
said
A.
early October, like the 5th or something, but we'll
Great.
dial that in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll probably have it in the intro even, so people will know already by the time they get
Yeah.
here, which is awesome. But I'm really
Good.
excited that you're and thankful you're willing to do that with us. I think it's your timing's great because I think gratitude has now been really well established as a practice. Do your gratitude practice morning and evening, and you're going to be happier, right? There's like actually pretty clean data on this. Have you been talking to scientists about gratitude or?
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful. The T-shirt for the festival here at the Mushroom Festival, the theme is resilience.
Mm,
Resilience is one of the great benefits you get from practicing gratitude, and that has been studied by Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center. So if you practice gratitude, what they found is people bounce back much faster from the bumps and obstacles and challenges that happen in our lives. Kind of makes sense. Let's say somebody scratched your car or bumped into you or something. Some people can bum out for a couple of days, you know, or you can just be 10 minutes, you know what I mean? Depending on how what your worldview is like, you know?
hmm.
So, yeah, like that's what is important, or maybe even something more serious, you know? Maybe you do have like a physical thing that happened with your health, and, some people can just flip out and um, create more anxiety about it. And other people can really with resilience, know they're going to heal, honor the fact they got 70 trillion cells in their body that are working in harmony. What a fucking miracle that is, that it can probably heal itself. I just allow it, my brain to like not, micromanage what the fuck is going on, and just, it'll happen. It's happening every day. It's happening every second. Like if you lean into that, and I'm grateful for that, grateful that it's working, grateful that I'm alive, grateful that I'm breathing, grateful I can walk. I mean, all the things you can be grateful for, then you're not in a negative spiral ruminating over what's wrong, whatever that wrong thing is. And that is a giant positive step in positive psychology by 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 not going to negative spirals and going into rumination, which is so easy for all of us to do. It's easy for me to do as well. So when I find myself in that situation, I think about what can I be grateful for, and immediately it's like I'm breathing, I'm talking to Joe, I got 5 fingers that I can move, you know. And immediately what it does is it stops the negative thought because you can't do both at the same time. And it's like a really cool button you can press. It's like puts it on pause. And then when I start thinking about what I'm grateful for, I've switched direction and I can go down that path for a while. And then usually you let go of that negative shit that you were talking about. It's a great tool. It's not like we have to practice meditation, become like a yogi, for like 10 years or 20 years of practice. It's something you can do immediately. It's not like a meditation thing that you have to become an expert in. It's like, how easy is it just to ask yourself in the moment, what can I be grateful for?
Right. Right.
Pretty easy.
Yeah. And I
So,
can see people
so
trying to resist, like, well, nothing's good. I'm like, wow, you're breathing.
you got to find something. And then
Yeah.
the great thing is we do have a a gratitude journal. It's called Gratitude Revealed, which is based on the science. We partnered with Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center. So we actually, in the journal book and in our website, there's also like a curriculum for teachers and parents. We give people really, guidelines and practices that you can do to practice gratitude and courage and creativity and all the things I talked about earlier. And it gives you the ability to journal and do all that stuff. So for people that need that kind of structure, it's great. We actually provide it. But what I do in the movie is I don't provide it. You get to hang out with some cool people that have overcome adversity in their life, that are living their lives with joy and hope, and you know inspiring you. And so you have to kind of lean in and go, what can I take from this experience? What's it like to hang out with this dude or that girl or whatever in this part of the country, hearing that kind of music and living in this kind of space? And it's really cool to be able to um, allow your own inner voice to teach you what is of value and to create meaning and context. So the film, I think, is really good in that way. And I designed it to be that way because I had teenage daughters or older when I was doing my first gratitude short that always roll their eyes and go, Dad, you're so cheesy. You're so corny. Do you have kids, Joe?
No.
Okay.
But I know the
Anyway,
attitude. I think
but
that
when
was
you
me.
have like young kids are skeptical, which is great. They should be. Otherwise, they'd be like robots, and we'd be raising right-wing kids all day long. Um, but they're always challenging you in a good way, and Dad always wants to give advice, and they're always going, "God, Dad, oh, you know." And so, yeah, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be preachy in any way.
That's good. And interesting, right? It's like, let me, so I assume there's some like adverse scenarios, right, where people are like, oh, okay, I did some gratitude and I feel a little bit better, or a lot better in some cases, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
no,
Hmm.
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, with my parents being Holocaust survivors, I love to tell stories of people who overcome adversity and yet still have positive energy and love and joy in their life. And that's what inspires me. But it's also the story of nature. Nature, whether it's the monarchs trying to get back to Canada and hitting headwinds and storms and flowers and plants that are getting stepped on the side of a road. I mean, notice the resilience. Notice how they overcome adversity and notice how they thrive. You know, those are the stories of nature. It's not a cakewalk, you know, for any, I think, plant or animal. They all go through tough times, but the tough times makes them stronger, right? So that's also it's a story in nature as well as it is with people that, yeah, we all go through tough times. We all go through some suffering, you know, and psychedelics is a really beautiful tool to help us sometimes overcome those traumas and maybe get a deeper understanding of what we can learn from those challenges and those obstacles. I love the fact when you look backwards, you go, that phrase, it's a blessing in disguise, you know, right?
It's a good one.
That the
Yeah.
shit that you went through, when every time you say it was a blessing, like the job that you got fired from, the relationship that broke up, you always look back and you go, that was a blessing in disguise.
You really
At the
dodged a
time, you
bullet
don't get
there.
it,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I'm actually kind of curious, like, now that you've been so steeped in psychedelics and gratitude, um, psychedelics as, or sorry, gratitude as an integration practice. Like, have you done any thinking on that?
I think most people do use gratitude in some direct or indirect way in integration. It's there um, already. I'm sure it's there, and I think that it would be really interesting to, create some maybe focused integration practices purely on the theme of gratitude. Hopefully, maybe people will watch the film and that could be part of the integration process. I know that people have watched my 5-minute short film on
Mm-hmm.
gratitude, and they've used it either at the beginning of a corporate seminar or people suffering from a death in the family, or people watching it every day, young people especially. They refer to it as a video alarm clock to kind of align themselves in the morning.
Wow.
5 minutes of gratitude. It's pretty cool, you know? And it's always different every time you watch that 5-minute video. Even for myself, I always have a different takeaway from from the experience. Um, so yeah, I do believe you can turn it into a practice.
That's really interesting. I love that. And I think, yeah, people can spiral out after a session. And if you don't have something to anchor you back of any kind, that's how the balloon just keeps going up and up and up, right?
Right.
So, and if you
Yeah,
have
and
something like, oh my God, I love my family, I love where I live, or whatever it is, yeah, that helps you want to be here
and it
longer.
doesn't have to be something really big. Again, like it's really great to say, I love the cup of coffee I'm sipping on right now. I mean, it's you can always think of the smaller thing, and it's actually kind of easier to follow that path and look at what can I immediately be grateful for in this moment. I feel like some cool air coming in from the door that's open right now that I'm talking to you. I mean, that's just so cool. I'm looking at the leaves that are like, floating in the wind from its little aspen tree out there. Like
Hmm.
it's always out there. It's always out there. I think one of the gifts for me in my life has been, as a quote unquote, let's say, cinematographer, is I'm always aware of light. I'm always aware of beauty. Always. Everywhere without a camera. I'm aware so that I can remember, when I want to film that, you know, what does it look like? And does it look good backlit, front lit, cross lit, um, in the shadow, in bright sunlight? They're all different, and so I appreciate all that. And what I'm appreciating is light energy, right? Which is source energy, which is the most basic thing we can describe as what is all of this. It starts with the sun, right? And light energy. So yeah, I'm always aware of what the light's doing.
I have to ask, and this is probably tangential, but is there ever FOMO or like anxiety from not having a camera on you?
Yes,
Okay.
totally.
Right. Because you
Yeah,
probably see so many amazing shots every day. You're like, oh,
yeah.
oh.
Well, and that's why I do have the camera with me the bulk of the time. And in a way, it's a blessing and a curse because, in a way, it's like, why can't I just be present and like, absorb the moment as opposed to like capturing it. But I love the idea of sharing it later on And I love the idea of working with it to accentuate the emotion we talked about earlier, how to make that emotion stronger. Okay, so it's really beautiful, but what music goes with that? What words go with that, you know? And so you can accentuate and shape it and make it stronger, which is the beautiful part of the filmmaking process that I enjoy, being able to blend sound and visual and words, you know, and story. So it's both. Um, yeah, it's both. And I think it's great that now that there's a proliferation of everyone's got their own camera called a phone, and everyone's got their own, you know, brand on Instagram. But I think people appreciate the work I do even more because then they see how difficult it is to get those shots and to be
Mm-hmm.
aware of lighting and to be aware of, you know, the composition and you know the artistry that goes into making it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's art and science, no doubt.
Yeah,
And yeah, I've you know, dabbled in film photography. It's fun, but yeah, it's incredibly time intensive. And yeah, like you were saying, just even with the film cost back then, incredible anything got done when film cost that much. But
yeah.
obviously there was incentives.
And when you said art and science, I mean, for me, the intersection of art and science is wonder and awe, you know, because we're trying to like explain what is this thing we call life, the world. And so that, you know, the scientist, you know, has really cool measuring tools and the scientific method to describe phenomena that is occurring in front of us, right? And then the artist has more of a liberal space to, you know, tell stories, to describe what is happening around us, you know, and maybe deal more on the emotional level as well. But they're both beautiful because when, you know, like in Fantastic Fungi and even in Gratitude, but like when you understand the science of like what's happening with the pollinator, what's happening with the mushroom when they're shooting out its spores, and how does life regenerate? When you hear the scientific description of it, you know, coupled with the beauty of it, wow, that is really
Right.
great.
Because you can get a super dead description, or you
Yeah,
can get a super vibrant description. I was just thinking of Oliver Sacks for whatever reason as you're talking here, like incredible scientist, pretty like hardline atheist, but his level of wonder was incredible, you know, and awe at existence in general. And I think that's really important and something that we need to really amplify.
totally.
Mm. There's a publisher I was really obsessed with for a while called Wandella Press, and they're doing kind of like what would you say, like 1850s 1940s kind of like uh seemingly scammy but also kind of clever books, like How to Keep the Goblins Out of Your Chicken Coop, or like, you know, Swami whoever Kananda's like Guide to Clairvoyance, but it's all done in like a really clever, really kind of like beautiful way. And it's just, yeah, this imaginal space that you can kind of amplify. And I think art is really helpful for that, obviously.
Yeah, it's great. You know, when I do my films, I work with scientific advisors, you know, which is really beautiful, and I love hearing their wisdom, you know, and that information helps me narrow down like what I want to, you know, film and what's going to be part of the story. Like even if I do a story about bees, well, what kind of bee, you know, and with kind of flower, and when you learn the science, then I try to figure out like what part of that would be really interesting to an audience. What would be the most engaging? What is the most inspiring, you know, story to tell that's, you know, along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's great. Um, so what does it look like to launch a film like Gratitude Revealed? Are you going to be traveling the world, kind of trying to screen it everywhere?
Well, we screened it in Estonia about 3 weeks ago at Mind Valley University, which was really great. And then somebody there goes to show how it spreads. Like someone there said they lived in Barcelona. We said we're going to be going to Barcelona. And we said, well, yeah, if you want to screen the film, Go ahead and, if you get a theater, happy to provide it. And I'm thinking, it ain't going to happen. It's only a week and a half away. She's like, here we are in Estonia. And what happens? She books the theater, standing room only. Week and a half later, I'm in Barcelona, and we're screening Gratitude Revealed. So I do believe that it's like a movement. I think it's contagious. I think that when we offer it for free, which is what we're doing to groups and organizations, um, we just want to share the gift of gratitude. And so that's my strategy for it now. I'm not trying to monetize it. I'm not trying to do anything other than create these events and screenings so people can come together in this time of like mental duress. I mean, we have more teenage suicides, coming out of COVID. I mean, there's a lot going on, environmental degradation. The politics are the worst ever in the gutter, you know, and a lot of people are, mentally stressed out, big time, right? So this gratitude is a baby step in the right direction that can pull you out of it. Not don't ignore it, you know. You got to be aware of what's going on, but you don't have to have that be your worldview. It doesn't have to like dominate your consciousness. Psychedelics, wonderful example of being able to show you that there are different forms of awareness, that you don't have to live in this definition of reality or, watching the news or your Instagram or whatever it might be. That's a form of worldview. There are other forms of worldview. A walk in the forest is another worldview. And every once in a while, maybe taking a journey with sacred, medicine is another good world view. How else would the mushrooms communicate their knowledge to you other than chemically? How else does everything in nature communicate chemically? It's aroma, it's scent, it's digestion. These are all transference of chemical molecules, right? From
Mm-hmm.
one
Even inside here,
organism.
right? This is how this whole
Yeah,
thing
it's not
operates.
from one
Mm-hmm.
organism to another, right? It's not speaking English. That is not the dominant communication in life on our planet. Think about it. It's primarily chemistry.
I love that. I love that. So, not to scare everybody, so I'll say it in nice language. Um, so we've got a pretty serious global quagmire on our hands, and like, you've kind of laid it out a few different ways already, but like, how in your mind would like gratitude and also psychedelics, maybe separately or together, however you want to handle it, like are going to help equip us, to handle the challenging times that are coming.
Totally. I think that because I've helped a lot of organizations in the environmental movement since Earth Day, 1970. I'm on the board of Earth Day, .org. I projected on the Vatican to support the Pope's encyclical to protect the environment. You know, so I've done all that stuff, but I'll be candid and say that the messaging has been wrong. That when you put the science, it's logical. Logic doesn't work. You put the science on the table and go, here's what's going on. The ice cap's melting, and we're going up X number of centigrades. It it creates a bit of doom and gloom and depression and makes people feel unempowered. And therefore, I think it's failed because we really haven't moved the needle far enough from Earth Day 1970, which was the largest actually the largest gathering on the planet on a global basis. So when I believe an alternative to that is certainly getting people to fall in love with nature to protect it. And then I believe when you do that in your own little community, in your own backyard, on your own back porch, you can make significant change. You could grow a tomato, in a pot on your back porch, living in a city. And by doing that, you minimize the, carbon footprint by shipping a tomato from Mexico all the way on a truck so you can buy it in the supermarket. Teach your kids how to grow your own food. Beautiful, here we are there's a farmer's market. If you can't go to the farmer's market, buy organic, support that, the farmers that are doing regenerative agriculture. Every choice you make is important, green energy, solar panels, driving a electric car. I mean, whatever you can do has a lot of impact. So that's, I think, how we address it. If we wait for government to do it, that ain't going to happen. Let's not put our hope there. You know what I mean? I hope it happens, but politics, as we see today, is extraordinarily, manipulative and controlled by big money. We can control our own community. That is something we can do. Our own backyard. My whole front yard, I turned that into a vegetable garden. Fuck
Great.
growing grass.
Yeah.
Takes a shitload of water and clippings that goes into the garbage that has to then, be hauled into a landfill. And
I
all
assume
of
Los
that,
Angeles, Louie.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's
And that
crazy
water
that people are growing grass in Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah. And the
I was in
water.
Ventura recently, and they wouldn't even serve water at the restaurant. You had to like buy a bottle. It's like the water was that low.
I know. And the water is being pumped from Northern California over the mountains. So it's electrical energy that's got to pump this water from Northern California into Southern California, which is a desert. So whatever you can do, obviously, to minimize, the wasteful use of energy is what we can do. And that's what we need to do. And I think that it is happening. And there is significant reductions, I think, that are occurring as people become more conscious. People are definitely more conscious about the food they buy. People are conscious about the products they're buying. I mean, they're asking more questions. There's a lot of room for improvement. But it isn't a tiny fraction anymore. This lifestyle and organic health and sustainability market is significant. Whole Foods got bought by Amazon. I don't know. All the major cars now are being, they should have gone electric, under Jimmy Carter when they had a mandate that we were going to get off of fossil fuels and we were going to have solar panels. We had solar panels on the White House, and then Reagan got rid of that, and we've gone through goddamn decades of environmental unconsciousness. And it's a miracle we're still, here. So the fact is the earth is really resilient. We've gone through a lot of stupid moves politically.
We at least survived the Cold War. Like if we survive that, like I think there's some hope. Like, right?
I know. But we're still kind of fighting a Cold War. We're in a war with Russia. And who's
did you see the South
talking
Park?
people?
They did a nostalgia thing. Like, oh,
Yeah.
all this because of nostalgia. It was pretty funny.
And
But
you know what?
keep going. Yeah.
You know what happened? I opened my film and I talked briefly about the fact that my parents were Holocaust survivors. And then Brother David, who has, gratefulness.org, he's a Jesuit priest. He's in his late 80s. And, he talks about, growing up with bombs and stuff all around him. And then I have Norman Lear in the beginning. And so I just, put together narrative that is good storytelling. But then I'm watching it in this sort of, before the Ukraine war happened. And I go, oh, fuck, we're leading off the film with a bunch of white guys that are with gray hair. And am I going to get criticized for that, And of course, I didn't give a shit. But what is amazing is what we all talk about is identical to the war in Ukraine. So this isn't a Pollyanna movie about, let's, meditate and feel good about gratitude and, let's try to make our lives a little bit more happy. It's not that. It's serious shit, This is how we need to really change the world. And there is a lot of things that are going on that are wrong, and there is a lot of suffering. And this is definitely, I think, one of the positive steps you can take. But this is not a new agey approach to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got to be practical. We've got to be able to see some movement. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to your point earlier, and this is like an Earth Day thing, right? Like, start with where you are, right? You can have the most impact here if you're just, running an incredible amount of electricity all day at home, and you're more focused on like an issue thousands of miles away. Perhaps flip that, do a little bit of effort there, but do most of your effort here. And in time, it's contagious, right?
Yeah.
Organic food. Like I'm remembering when I started being able to buy food for myself, like 2004 or 3, 4. I was getting made fun of for buying organic, but I had a professor say, you can't afford not to buy organic, even for your own health, on account of
Yeah.
cancer being the number one cause of bankruptcy or health
Yeah.
issues. Yeah. It's fascinating. And not to mention all the implications for the planet downstream.
Right. And also just, for the general public, I mean, healthcare has gone through the roof. We're creating disease. That's your tax dollars that's paying for all of that. You know, a giant healthcare system that is a disease management system. It isn't healthcare. So, don't need to spend another hour talking about that. But we know that's true. Your audience knows that's true. So it's important that we do that shift so that we don't spend all of our resources on treating disease and obviously hundreds of millions of people dying and suffering from eating, terrible quote unquote food, if you can call it food.
Food like product. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
products with, artificial ingredients that are designed to stay on the shelf for 2 years or 3 years and not rot so that you can, maximize profit. But if it doesn't rot on the shelf, then it means you're not going to be able to digest it in your body either.
mm-hmm. So Louie, um, not a very clever last question here, but I'm actually kind of curious on who I might know in your film or who's in Gratitude Revealed.
Sure. Well, there's Deepak Chopra, Norman Lear, Michael Beckwith, Lynn Twist, Jason Silva, InQ the rapper, Chris Anderson from TED. Those are the quote unquote people you might know, but the surprise for you is going to be all of the extraordinary, remarkable people you don't know. These are people that are not famous, but are extraordinary. And that, I think, is a beautiful kind of message we can share with everybody, that you don't have to be a celebrity, that there's so many people that are doing extraordinary things that we don't know about, and that you can hang out with a farmer, and a bike messenger and all kinds of different people and realize how extraordinary they are. And the wisdom that they have to share is deep and profound. And also a bunch of kids in my film that'll just blow your mind with the wisdom that they have to share when you're 4, 5, 6 years old. Uh, it's like from the mouth of babes is like the most incredible wisdom. So that's what's really great. It seems like that wisdom, that consciousness is out there everywhere. It doesn't come from a handful of luminary speakers. It comes from our community. It comes from the universe. It comes from that psychedelic world that we sometimes dive into. It's out there, and we can sort of tap into that universal consciousness of love that we all feel, whether you're on a journey or whether you're just, sharing love with somebody.
Mm-hmm. One last story from me. I was just listening to I've become friends with these guys. They're some artists formerly from Venice Beach called Martian Circus. I encountered them at Lightning in a Bottle, and they're all about everything becoming 5D covering the whole world. And I think that's related to some funny cosmology thing about the fifth dimension being love and unity. And like their music is all about that. And I was listening to their albums yesterday because I'm trying to plan something with them, and it's very it matches up with kind of what you're saying here. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know if their music's for everybody, but it's funny. Their whole vibe is super funny until day glow. Anyway, I really appreciate this, Louie. And do you want to maybe mention some of your websites where people can track your work?
Yeah, definitely. One of the great things we're doing, the Moving Art series, which was on Netflix. These are like 20 episodes of music and visuals with no narration. I know for a fact that many underground practitioners have used it in their ceremonies, as well as a lot of kids in dorm rooms, because you can't always have access to the Galapagos, underwater, Africa, New Zealand. So that whole series, we're moving to the Louie Channel, and that'll be available at the end of the month. And so louiechannel.tv would be a good place for people to go, because that's where I'm going to put all my stuff now. Gratitude, Fungi, Journey Through Nature. It's all going to be there. And also just, the conversations that we're having too, like the podcast I'm doing with you, with people in the psychedelic world and the fungi world. That's all going to be there as well.
Amazing. And definitely check that out, folks, and see these films. I can't wait to see Gratitude Revealed. I'm sure sooner than later. And Fantastic Fungi. If you haven't seen it, why? It's amazing. Yeah, there's no real reason not to see this one.
One of the few films ever to get 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So even the critics like it.
That's crazy. Yeah. When I see above 30%, I'm like, oh, it's probably a good movie. Perfect.
But then again, when it came out, that we had to self-distribute because there really was no distribution offers for it. There was no audience that they thought was out there. And we proved it. There is an audience, your audience. They fucking showed up. We didn't have any money to market and advertise. Where did we release it first? Denver. Who broadcast it? The Psychedelic Society, because they just passed the initiative to decriminalize mushrooms in Denver. That's how it happened, and then it became viral after that. Then Portland wanted to book it. Then Vancouver wanted to book it. Then Santa Cruz wanted to book it. That's the story. So I really wanted to. I think it's important.
You're saying all the cities that changed their laws.
Exactly.
Right after screening it. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, we helped. I mean, when we screened it in Oregon, it was before they did the vote. They used it as a fundraiser for the Oregon Psychedelic Society. So we were like shifting consciousness and raising money to help get those laws changed. But that audience showed up and sold out theaters. And the only way another theater will book a movie is if you pay the rent. So when they saw that it was kicking butt and breaking record in Denver, well, shit, they say, I want it in my movie theater, right? And because we didn't spend money, we had no budget for marketing and ads. We just told the Psychedelic Society community in that city, of which there are in every major city now, all across the world. We just let them know, here we are with our movie, and guess what? They spread the word.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. And folks should
more of us,
understand
amen.
this.
There's more of us than we think. That was the big lesson of Woodstock, by the way. That's what triggered that whole revolution, because people were smoking dope in their closet and nobody knew that it was okay to come out of it, And then all of a sudden 500,000 people showed up, and then all of a sudden it became, the fashion, the music, the culture, all of it changed overnight because we all looked around and we said, what the fuck's going on? And there's more of us than we think.
Yes, mass gatherings matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's a really important culture change. All right, Louie. Well, thank you so much. Okay. Let's hang out for a second on the other side. But yeah, I really appreciate your time, and I'm very much looking forward to the screening.
Great. I look forward to it too, especially with your audience.